Hi, Rama. It's week 51, day 5 of our Bible narrative reading plan, and today we're in Acts chapter 27. We saw yesterday the great detail of Paul's trial, and that it's very clear that Paul is not guilty of anything, but Paul has appealed his case to Caesar. And to Caesar he has appealed, and to Caesar he will go. Caesar is in Rome, and so Paul has to make a very difficult journey there. And we read that here in Acts chapter 27. We see the difficulty of the boat ride, the ship ride, to get Paul and those who are with him, 276 people in all on that ship, to get them safely to land. And this helps us see a couple of things. Number one, all these great details that may not mean a whole lot to us, they're very consistent with what we know about boating and ships during that time and seafarer during that time. And this is consistent with Luke and his great detail, his accuracy as an author, as the writer of the book. And so we can trust what Luke has written in the Gospel of Luke and the Gospel of Acts, but we can trust all of God's Word. And we see here, even in verse 1, that it talks about we. Luke is back with Paul. He is with Paul during much of the book of Acts. He's back with Paul here in chapter 27. Luke goes with Paul all the way to Rome. But a second thing we see from this chapter and the great difficulty with which Paul makes his way to Rome is we see how God is working even to spread the gospel to the ends of the earth. Because Paul is going to go to Rome, he's going to present the gospel as he's done every other time. We're not told about what happens. As we'll see in chapter 28, we get to a stopping point. We're not told about Paul's trial before Caesar, but we can trust that Paul is preaching the gospel every opportunity that he gets. And so even as we would see a great season of adversity in Paul's life, as it's difficult for him, and he's been on trial, and he's been nearly killed so many times in the book of Acts, but now he's on his way to do what Jesus has commanded him to do and us to do, which is to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. And so we see that Paul warned the people against this ship ride. He said it's not going to go well, and they didn't listen to him. And when things start to go well, he tells them in verse 21, you should have listened to me. But then he tells them that an angel has spoken to him. Verse 24, do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand before Caesar. And behold, God has granted you all those who sail with you. So take heart, men, for I have faith in God that it will be exactly as I have been told, but we must run aground on some island. They don't want to take advice from Paul. They are experienced sailors, and they want to do things the way that they think they should. But Paul is saying this is what needs to happen. And so for 2 weeks, they are under difficult circumstances. They're not eating, and Paul urges them, verse 34, to eat some food. He's already told them that the men who are trying to slip off the side of the boat, they won't live if they do that. They must stay in the ship. This is the way God has ordained it, has planned it all. And so actually, their salvation comes through a shipwreck. They're saved because they make it to dry land because first they crash on the rocks. And so we see all of this here, and we see that the soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners. Verse 42, lest any of them should swim away and escape. But the centurion, wishing to save Paul, kept them from carrying out their plan. So all of this chapter, we see God working in the life of Paul. Paul has not been abandoned by God. Paul has not sinned in some way that's bringing him through this punishment. We can't say that if Paul had just lived right, he wouldn't be going through these difficult circumstances. Paul is going through these circumstances because of the will of God upon his life. And God is working in a wonderful way to bring Paul safely to Rome. Here's a summary of today's reading. For more information, go to tunemyheart.org.